I wanted to add something to what I spoken about in the previous video about protagonists who are able to use the skills and experiences they accumulated even in bad circumstances. There is another side to that coin that I have mentioned before. Protagonist receiving a cheat item or a plot armor, no matter the situation, which is again something that I definitely don't want. I would much rather the protagonist to use previously established ways he possesses to deal with the unexpected in a natural and consistent story-wise way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the protagonist is unable to fail. It just shouldn't be the result of the story just saying that he needs to fail right here, like in a video game, a scripted loss to a cutscene or a mob that you are simply not supposed to win against. But obviously, he shouldn't just receive everything on a silver plate. And I also mentioned dumb luck and that I am not against it, although it would have to work simultaneously against the enemies and also against the protagonist. It shouldn't be this deus ex machina, and the frequency of it happening should not exceed, let's say, acceptable range. I would say that a great example of the dumb luck element having an immense impact on the story is Glum or Smeagol from The Lord of the Rings. He kind of is that village idiot that takes care of his business on the wrong corner of some ancient pentagram that I have brought up before in one of my previous videos. Although I think that if I ever use such character or device, I am going to steer clear from any sort of hints like Gandalf saying that Smeagol is probably going to play some role in the future, and I do not find this sort of an insignificant character having this seemingly small role. In the end, he did just bite off some fingers, nothing too crazy in the grand scheme of things, and yet how that turned out. So this was just a short postscript, and now I'm going to continue with the rapid arrows, who dealt successfully with the orphanage arc and are ready to move on. And in the next one, we are introduced to a very famous Czech puzzle called Hedgehog in the Cage, which is a spiked ball trapped in this sort of a cage. It's made from metal, and the spikes on the ball are of different length, and the cage has gaps, and by turning the small hedgehog in certain ways you are able to extract it from the cage. Basically a hand-sized puzzle, this brain teaser, and it falls into the hands of a club of boys because it fell out from a car that was transporting them. Supposedly, this exact copy was meant to start selling next month, and this stroke of luck gives these boys a head start on the rest of the clubs and all the readers of the Young Herald. So they are determined to crack this puzzle, but even after hours of trying to extricate the hedgehog from its cage, they are unable to do so. So they figure out they might as well try to ask the rapid arrows because they came into contact with the hedgehog in one of their off comic adventures in the novels. So they write them a letter inviting them to a certain street with promises of telling them some very important information. When the Rapid Arrows receive that letter, they are quick to point out that the street they were invited to is not exactly the best place to be cornered in, and that the intentions of the sender might not be exactly pure, but they figure out that if all five of them go, nothing too bad can happen to them. But the moment they meet the boys, or well, young men, because these are clearly older and bigger than the Rapid Arrows members, they force them to try and get the hedgehog out, otherwise things won't end well for the younger boys. They have an hour, and when the hour is almost over, they still haven't made any real progress, so Speedy tries to negotiate for an extension of the limit imposed, but the older boys will have none of that, and thus the only way out seems to be through force. Their attempt is thwarted by the fact that there is just simply too big of a difference between the strength of the two parties, and they are forced to go back into that one-way street. They walk slowly, seemingly accepting their defeat, but at the last moment they just run into one of the houses. They run into this yard with a wooden fence. They climb across it and land themselves in something that seems to be a dog's graveyard, and they hear howling from a nearby window. They sneakily come closer just to find a man abusing another poor animal. They scream at him to stop immediately, and he leaves the room in a hurry, holding this terrifyingly looking club. They would like to rescue the dog, but the man is clearly onto them, and one of the neighbors even warns them that the man living there is insane and that they really need to run. They are running for their lives, jumping over obstacles, Redcap even saying that if he was able to replicate his current performance in a controlled athletic environment, he would be going straight to the Olympics, while poor Speedy, on the other hand, stumbles over a crate, almost falling down, saying that he feels like a parachute instead. They run into the boys that led them into the trap with the hedgehog, but this time there is something way more terrifying right on their backs, so they just run past them. The insane man switches his attention to the older boys, while the Rapid Arrows run towards the nearby association that protects animals, where they report the insane man and are thanked by the two women who promise that the man will go to a facility and that there will be no more harm done towards any animals or people by that particular man. And it's spring, which means more adventures outside. The Rapid Arrows go for an expedition, and they see a new road being built with railways and mine carts. Redcap and Speedy are awfully excited, run towards the edge of the valley the road is being built in. Mirek tries to warn them, but it's too late and the edge comes off, taking the two boys with it. Speedy screaming the whole way down that it's an earthquake, mountains are shattering, and they are falling into the abyss, hoping, screaming for help from anyone. They do fall into the soft ground, so even if Speedy is crying that they were buried alive, nothing actually happened to them, and the rest of the boys successfully excavate them. And Mirek tells them that it could have been much worse, and reminds Speedy that he dreamt about a shoemaker, which is supposedly a sign of bad luck, and this was its first strike apparently. But nothing can stop Speedy for too long, and he notices the mine carts. Mirek tries to warn him, and Yarka just resigns that the damned planter doesn't care about anything, and no amount of shoemakers in dreams can stop him from being reckless. He steps onto the cart, pushes it, and without caring for what might be in front of him, goes for a ride. Well, it's a 10 meters long ride before a strong curve appears. He decides to take his chances with the ground and disengages, traveling 2 more meters on the top of his nose, questioning if such a ride was even worth it. When he gets patched up, he proclaims that seeing a shoemaker in your dream truly brings in terrible misfortune. And Mirek adds to that whenever you see mine carts on a construction site, you better leave them alone, otherwise it might have consequences. And this is where I'm going to stop. Added a little bit about competent protagonists and covered some more adventures of the Rapid Arrows Club. I'm going to continue doing just that.